Okay, my outstanding friends, I have been really pushing all of the ancient texts and how they relate to these creatures that were here. And there's absolutely no question. There was dragons, there was giants, and as far as I'm concerned, the gods were as advertised. Typhon was as advertised. He was just gigantic, and he was attacking the gods, spitting fire. All of these things are they're just so far off the charts that nobody can really get their head around, and I really can't either. I'm going to tell you right now, I got some issues that I'm dealing with right now. So here's what I decided to do. I've been looking at Genesis. How did this whole thing happen? It's certainly not a big bang. There's no question about that. Everything doesn't bang from nothing. However, everything is here. Where did it come from? No one will ever know. Even if there is a God creator that is like a person type God, he's not going to know. He's just going to be here. How would he know? Because the one that sent him had to come from somewhere else. You get to the end of the road and you're just done. That road is a road to madness if you can't accept the end of the road. Everything's here, it is here, that case is closed. Now, what do we do when we deal with what is here? Who is in charge? Who's God? Who is God? And is there a God of the universe, the entire universe, or is there a God of a solar system, or is there a God of a region? And if you study the different thoughts about God, it goes all over the ballpark. And then there's, of course, atheists. They don't believe in anything. You just happen to be here, and then when you're gone, that's it. That's all done for you. Then there's other ones that you get reincarnated, just come back in a whole new life as, I don't know what, another human being, an animal, who knows. And then there's other ones that say you either go to heaven or you go to hell or you go to purgatory, or you do this, you do that, or I don't know. So the only way to get my mind around this is to pretend that I am God. And how did I set all these things up? And first of all, before I shouldn't have said that. Let's scratch that. What you have to understand is I now accept the ancient mythology about Gaia and about the Titans and about the Olympians and about the gods and about the 200 fallen angels, the watchers that were supposed to be helping mankind, and decided to use the women as sex slaves and everything. I mean, they just had a party here, and all that is written about. But it also is all weaved into the ancient myth of giants and all. Enoch wrote about 2.5 mile tall giants. Somebody else there's a certain religious sect that have a Bible. I guess it might even be the Colburn. No, it might be the Colburn Bible. Well, I'm not sure about that, but there is a Colburn Bible that goes back 3,600 years and talks about all these exact same things. I think it is the Colburn Bible. But anyway, there's one group that has a Bible that was presented to them by Jesus Christ, who they said was 96 miles tall. All right, now I don't know how he handled in that book, but I don't know. But here's the key. All these gods could turn themselves into anything they wanted, literally anything. So a 96 tall giant, who would be Jesus, or who would be Zeus, or who would be any one of the gods, and there was a ton of them, 200 of them turned themselves into regular human being-sized people, came down and had sex with all the women, and just had a party. And then they turned themselves back into giants or dragons or trees or fungus. Ovid talks about this. If you read Metamorphosis, which means transformation, transforming into something, they could change themselves into literally anything. Constellations in the sky. They could change themselves into rivers, and fungus and ants and rain or anything they wanted. And this is all recorded by Hesiod, who was told to write these things down by the daughters of Zeus, who was the god in charge of this solar system. And he was not the god that you think, the god that everybody prays to was Zeus. If you pray to the Old Testament God, he was the God that ran the earth and this solar system as the superior God, and he ruled with a rod of iron, which is also something in the Revelations. We need to talk about Revelations. Did that already happen? I say yes. I think it already did happen. Where the woman was standing on the moon and about ready to give birth, and a dragon swooped in to eat the child, and the child was hidden away. That's exactly what happened with Zeus and some of the other gods. And they were eating the children. And that's why Gaia, the earth, was so enraged, because they were killing her children. Her children were the giants. And then they were all killed by the gods. The gods were like another group that hated the giants, so they killed the giants. And then Gaia, who was the mother of the giants, was enraged. She brought forth Typhon, which was the dragon, by having sex with Tartarus. I know it sounds insanely insane. That's just the way life is. Because now, if you've seen Typhon, and I know you've seen him if you've been following me, that dragon is there in North Africa. He is attacking a fish, and it's said in the text that the dragon attacked, Typhon attacked the gods, and they turned themselves into animals to try to get away. And he got the fish. So I am going to be God, speaking about how I see my creation. And what happened? How did it go so wrong? And how was it formed? And when it said, let there be light, how could there have been light? And then the sun showed up. You need the sun to provide the light, I would think. And Jesus said, if they ask you where you came from, tell them you came from the light, the place where the light comes of its own accord. And that's the only place I know of it is a star or a sun, where all that light is just shining down on you from something that's just happening all by itself. Nobody's up there turning switches and running generators, I don't think. I know what it's caused. It's caused by the scrubbing through the atmosphere of that huge body, and it's creating a tremendous scrub in the outer zone of its atmosphere, which is the corona. Millions of degrees. The sun itself is only 10,000. Earth is the same situation. 2,700 degrees, something like that, out in the ionosphere, which you could call a firmament. Everybody says, oh, there's a firmament, there's this, there's that. No, there is an ionosphere that wraps around the Earth, which is a zone of extra particles of electrons, ions, and they're very reactive. And above that is a lot of different particles that when they come below and they condense, those particles are literally almost just like vapor. They're almost like, they are atomic vapor, but when they get below and they condense into gases, and then they condense into liquids. So it separates the waters above from the waters below. Yes, no question about it. You call it a firmament, call it anything you want. It wraps around our globe. Now, at one time, I can't tell you, the Earth could have been flat. I have no clue. All I know is it started out with chaos, absolute chaos and I'm going to tell you how I did it, because I'm God. One day I said, let's start a solar system. Go grab a whole batch of goop and throw it over there as chaos. And then we'll deal with it when we get there. And I'm going to send a whole batch of you guys down to help the people that we're going to create down there. So let's get started. Let there be light. All right, it appears that they believe, these people that believe Jesus was 96 miles tall, that he comes back as reincarnated just over and over and over. It appears that that's what they believe. I could be wrong. This is kind of new to me. But the book describes angelic beings in plural of stupendous size, and their announcement of universal destruction. And this is also about similar enormous angels are also described in 3 Enoch, 6 is Metatron, but Ecclesiastic particularly describing Christ and the Holy Spirit specifically. And I do not discount any of this stuff anymore, because the giants were absolutely unbelievably enormous, and I think they must have been like that when they were in their heavenly area. When they came to Earth, they just shrunk themselves down. Okay, my outstanding friends, happy Thanksgiving. Today I am going to do something that starts from the beginning of my research up till today. And all of the things that I have uncovered they're putting me in an idea where I may be a little bit involved in this unveiling of truth, which I have found there is very little of. And I'm going all the way back to the earliest writings and the earliest observations by the earliest documented history that we have. And it was by Velikovsky. He's the one that did the real research on our true ancient past, looking at it with an eye for what's true and what isn't true. And that's the problem we have now. Things are accepted as being true automatically. We all know this. Everyone knows this. Everybody agrees on this. No, that's not true at all. You are told what you have to agree with, or you will be failed as an intelligent human being. You'll be called an idiot, just like I was for many years now and still today. And, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying this is the path I was put on, and there was no turning around. So I am going to show you what I discovered and what I was led to discover. I didn't just go out and say, oh boy, I'm going to find something. I'm going to tell you exactly how this happened. And you have to hold fast to truth. You cannot just say, well, I want to be accepted by everybody, so I'll say stupid things, or I'll agree to things that just aren't true, and I can show they're not true. And this is what I have found. People are willing to do that, to be accepted by their friends, their family, their peers, their everybody. And trust me, I'm not accepted by anybody now. None. Zero. In my life. I live on my own. And that's okay. That's why I spend all my days every day basically making these videos. This is my purpose in life. I have been assigned this job, and I'm going to tell you why I feel that I have been assigned this task. And I do feel there are entities that can influence people, just normal people. I'm just a normal person. I'm nobody special, trust me. I have so much to be ashamed of. I'm not going to confess to you all the little details, but trust me, I'd be very surprised if they let me into heaven, if there is a heaven. But if you can be forgiven, well, then I got a chance. I'm doing the best I can to get there now, understanding what I know now, because 15 years ago, God was just a nonsense thing. Absolute. Who would ever believe that? There was nothing, zero, to support it except some ancient texts about giants and dragons and monsters and chaos and devils. And I mean, it's absolute insanity for anyone to just pick that up and read it and say, oh yeah, that's just true. That's all real. No problem. No, you'd have to be an idiot. If you can't find anything material that supports your claims of these literally insane claims that are in literally all the ancient texts have them, and every culture had the same story. Giants, dragons, monsters, terrestrial battles, heavenly battles, gods, titans, monsters of every different type, 50 heads, 100 hands. So I would never have believed that, but I got a message one day that says go out in the woods and see what you can find. I woke up in the morning, I said to my wife, I said, something in the woods calling my name. That was my exact words. And I said, I'm just going to go out and see if I can find something. I thought I would find an arrowhead or something like that, just something that I was making up in my mind because I don't normally do that. I didn't go scouring the woods looking for things, but this particular morning I had this feeling, and I did. And not that exact day, but I just kept looking and looking, and I finally, within a week or two, I found giant mud fossils, and I discovered all these mud fossils, and I mean dozens of them. I mean, they came falling out of the sky, literally. And when I started searching on giants, and I'm telling you, this is an honest, factual truth. Looking up giants, and all of a sudden something came up on the screen. It came up and just went away quickly, and it said, "These things are for you to see and for others as a test." And I said, "Whoa." And it went away, and I couldn't find it again. Still can't find anything that relates to that. Nowhere and I mean, when I search, I do some pretty deep searches, and it was gone. It was gone. How it got there, no clue. And that wasn't the last message I got, but I realized nobody, literally nobody, passed the test. These things are for you to see and for others as a test. I was so pushed against by literally everyone, 100%, all the academics, all my friends, all my family, 100%, not one single person. And even to this day, I'm not really allowed to speak about things. And I'll tell you right now, I'm literally not allowed to speak about them around anybody else. I can't even go to Thanksgiving because I'm not even supposed to speak about these things. It's just a position I have been put into. Nobody wants to know about it. This is just exactly what I was told. Nobody wants to hear about you talking about these things. Why don't you just stay home? So I'm staying home. Happy Thanksgiving. I know that sounds like I'm complaining and everything, but I'm not complaining at all. I would rather not go and be a disruptive voice, because I can't be quiet. If somebody says something and I don't agree with it, I just don't agree with it, and I do not stay silent. So I am a disruptive force. And when I originally discovered all this stuff, I was very exuberant, and I tried to force people to listen to me, which didn't work well at all. And it ended up turning everybody against me, and that was my fault. I didn't have enough evidence to support the claims I was making, but I did know, based on what I did, the research myself, the microscopes and all that stuff. I used all the tools to prove, and then I got the DNA tests and the CAT scans, but I didn't have all that stuff done originally, which put everybody off. Obviously, the guy's crazy. He's nuts. Then I did all that stuff, and then they came back at me saying, "Oh, you must have done something wrong. You contaminated this. You did that." But nobody would actually examine the evidence. That's what really bothered me, because I presented this to Yale University, to Harvard, to all of them, Johns Hopkins, and I went to school at Johns Hopkins. I didn't go there, but I went online, and I showed this to the professor. He basically called me an insane person. So I'm being rejected by literally 100%. As I started to go online, what happened to me was I was destroyed online. And this is another sore topic for me, is about this flat earth stuff. As soon as I started posting that I discovered giants, I never even not one person had ever told me that I can remember that the earth was flat. But all of a sudden, everybody, they're coming out of the woodwork. The earth is flat. Roger proved the earth is flat. He found giants. That proves the Bible's true, the earth is flat. And I said, no, absolutely not. And they continued to do that. That was the only topic. That was literally the only topic. And finally I had to shut down my channel. It just turned into a joke. And I would say, look from the space station, please. And no, there's a firmament, we know this. And yes, there is a firmament. It's called the ionosphere, and it circles around the entire globe. And that is almost like a hard shell that's scrubbing as we spin, and the Earth does spin, a globe spins, and it scrubs on that ionosphere. And that ionosphere is the dome around the Earth, and it separates the waters above from the waters below. And the waters above are literally the waters of the sun. They are atomic vapor. Listen to me. They are atomic vapor. I wrote this in 1970. They are atomic vapor. And what happens is in space, they are not condensed enough to create water. When they get in underneath the firmament, the ionosphere, they can condense and turn into water. So it separates the waters from above from the waters below. And then, I mean, literally everything I have read, I can explain almost 100% now, the things that were stated in the Bible. And it even said that, you know, if they tell you, Jesus' disciples were praising him coming into somewhere, he was coming down the Mount of Olives or somewhere, and they were all praising him, saying, the Lord has come, blah, blah, blah. And the Pharisees, literally the academics of that time, the religious academics, said, if you tell your people to shut up, tell those people to shut up. And Jesus said, no, I'm not going to tell them to shut up, because if they shut up, the very rocks will cry out. And they have literally forced people not to speak about religion, not to speak about God, not to take any of this stuff serious. In academia, it's a total separation. It's the demarcation line, they call it. You're either on this side with all the academics or on that side with all the crazy people. And that is it's just not right anymore. It's just proven to be incorrect. And now the people that had that mindset, I'm telling you, once your mind is set, it's called menticide. And you just can't get away from that mindset, no matter what the evidence is. It becomes inconsequential to the mind. The mind now is in control of you. And if you have been brainwashed correctly, and that is academics, if they create enough menticide in you, which is brainwashing you, and they have all the control over you, you cannot fight back, you cannot stand up, you just can't. There's no way to do it. They will crush you, they will give you failures and everything else, which I ran into all this my whole life. So, you know, I didn't fail in life. I was very successful, but I had my own business. I would never have been able to be successful in academia or anywhere like that, which I had thought I might get into, physics and, you know, all of that business. I was really deep into that stuff. You know, I was in the Army, and I was in nuclear missiles, Nike Hercules missile sites. I didn't actually service the molecules or anything, but you when a missile goes out, they got these missile carriages, and they have to stand up and shoot off, and all that stuff has to be correct. The blast doors have to open the right way. I have to all the electricity and all. And this was in Alaska, way out in the middle of nowhere land. So we had to do a lot of improvising, and anyway, that's another story. But I really learned that nothing that we have been told is true, because the academics will not engage in anything that is not peer reviewed. The first words I ever hear is this peer reviewed? I said, no, they won't review it. Well, then that's because you're an idiot. I said, no, it's because it's just too far off the chart. Look at the evidence. No, why should I look at it? You're an idiot. If you're not peer reviewed, you're just a jerk. And that's to today. So hopefully you understand. I am not complaining. I understand everybody's mindset. And until you can break that and open up your mind as a true scientist, and I see all the true scientists, they say, oh, I'm a true scientist, I'm only looking for this, I'm only looking for that. And then you say, well, will you please check this out? No, why should I? That's so ridiculous that you make me look foolish. And this is what happened to me, this flat earth stuff. Why don't you check out flat earth? I said, I did. I did. It could have been flat at one time. I have no idea. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be doing something, playing God and saying, how would I develop the solar system? It's chaos. You have to throw a bunch of materials in and then let it develop into a solar system. I was so fully misunderstood in the beginning, and I misunderstood everything in the beginning because I didn't think there was anything such as a God or any of that nonsense. It was just all here, and nobody could explain it, so why should I do just like them? If you can't explain it, you can't explain it. Well, now all of a sudden I have evidence. So this is a whole different ballgame now. Now, if a flat earther could show me that there was no space station, I mean, trust me, there's hundreds of thousands of people involved in the space stations and the Google Earth and satellites, and they did go to Mars. There's no question about these things. I have searched this stuff. I have done more research on this than literally anybody on planet Earth, because that's all I do. And I can tell you right now, either you listen to me or don't. To me, it makes no difference whatsoever. I am just presenting the evidence, and this is evidence. This is not just theoretical stuff. However, you have to go back to the original texts and decide, is this stuff valid or is not valid? This one says this one says this, but by the time you get done, things start to filter out to where there's enough evidence to support one line of thought that it's probably likely correct. But again, does it support my mudfossil research? I don't care if it does or it doesn't, because some of the stuff I can't explain. I absolutely can't explain how these gigantic creatures are on the face of this earth, thousands of miles long. And what did they eat? What kinds of games did they play? How did they even walk around on this earth, the size of the earth now? And so that's a valid question. I can't answer that question. But the earth is a round globe now. Now, at one point, it might have been just an expanse of materials, which is what I am going to say. This is the way I would present. I would develop a solar system. If I was the big God of the universe, I'd say, all right, let's start a solar system over there. We're going to go down there and we're going to start a solar system. Call it whatever you want to call it. The big soul. All right, so we're going to go down there for the big soul. And how are we going to start this thing out? Well, how do you start anything? You need building materials, right? You're going to build it out of something. So let's take a bunch of stuff. And I give you the materials list. You take it and you just throw it down out in this little space out there. There's nothing out there right now to speak of, just light and this and that. So throw it out in that space. We'll develop that tract of property. And all of the workers, the guys, the angels, whatever you want to call them, the watchers, they get all of this stuff together. And the God says, all right, throw it down there in this little region down here and let it just pile up over there, and it'll be a bunch of chaos. Don't worry about it. We'll handle that later. And then they throw all of this stuff down, this chaos. All right, there's waters and there's metals and there's all kinds of things in there. And it's just a mess of chaos. And then it sort of settles out and basically crystallizes and homogenize, or not homogenize, it collects in its own little discrete areas. And then God said, let there be light. And he lit it all up, and that injects the energy to make plants grow, to do all of that stuff. And the key was, I was off on this. Somebody tipped me off, because at first I said, well, God's got to be the sun. God has to be the sun, because he said, let there be light, and the only thing that lets light happen is the sun. And I still think God is the sun. All right? The God of this region is the sun. But there was another God above him that put him in charge of this region as the sun and as the ruler of this celestial sphere, this realm, that we live in this all the way out to Pluto and probably Nibiru, if in its elliptical orbit. That sounds like it's got a lot of evidence to support that. And they called it the Destroyer, the Frightener. It was a planet that goes way, 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 way out, and then it comes way back, and it almost smashes into Earth. And now there's that, and then there's a story about Venus that Velikovsky's talked about, as Jupiter being the god of this solar system. But the real god of the solar system is the sun. All right, let me stop for a moment and get my thoughts together, and then we'll start to talk about how would a solar system develop. And I can tell you right now, if you're going to look for God, you're not going to find him. Because God himself would not know where he came from. I can't even imagine. If there was nothing and then there's something, how did that happen? We know it's here, so we just can't go down that road. That road is just a road to madness, to try to say, I have to discover who God really is and where he came from. Because God himself, that would be in charge of the entire universe. Let's say there's one God, and he's in charge of the entire universe. Well, he can't take care of the entire universe, I don't think. Maybe he can. Maybe he's got enough tentacles to do it. But I would assume he's going to delegate authorities. And that's what the sun of our region is God's authority in this solar realm. So what is God in this solar realm? He's the sun. So he's got to create all the energy and everything. So he's sort of a provider. He's sort of a father figure, a loving, warming presence continuously. So he doesn't have he can't take care of things. So he said, look, we're going to create man, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but I need some guys to go down there and supervise this thing. So he put Jupiter, which was the next biggest mass in the solar system. He said, you're going to be the god of the Earth and all of the planets, and you're going to be the one in charge of all of them, because they're all gods. And there was a zillion of them. I mean, there were tons of them. Well, 600 angels, which are watchers, which are gods. They're gods. Little g gods. There's a big, big g god, and there's a gigantic g god. So the big g god is the ruler of our solar system, and to me, he's the sun. Now, he put Jupiter in charge of us. Jupiter is Zeus in the ancient Greeks, and I go to the ancient Greek text now because they talk about Typhon, and they talk about all of the ancient mythology that is supported now with dragons and monsters and giants and all of these things. It's 100% supported by my research and 100% supported by Velikovsky's documentation of literally every culture on Earth. There's not one single culture that doesn't have gods, dragons, giants, monsters, some kind of an afterlife or something normally happens to you. But there are atheists, but that's to me right now, that's an outlier. An atheist is somebody that just doesn't believe in it. You just somehow appeared out of nowhere and you became alive, and then you're dead. And Neil deGrasse Tyson was saying, oh yeah, it's just like before you were born, there's nothing. After you're dead, there's nothing. Case closed, have a nice day. And he's really being bright and cheery about it. Well, that really wouldn't be a bad outcome. But I can tell you what, there is some bad outcomes as far as I'm concerned. You can get in some serious trouble in the next life by not doing what you should in this life. That's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. Do what you should while you're here now, because there's going to be something. As far as I'm concerned, it does not end here. And if you think it does, well, you're in the wrong place, because we're going to be talking about my interpretation. And again, these are just my opinions. These are guesses at this point. But I am trying to support it by the ancient texts and by the material evidence of mud fossils primarily. And the statements made about the things in space, the battles in the heavens, the gods, the planets, all of those things. And I start with Apollodorus is the best source for me right now. Apollodorus. And if you looked up Apollodorus 1.6.2 and 3, it talks about the giants being killed by the gods who were the children of Earth. The Earth is a living creature, or was at least alive one time, and her children were the Titans and the giants and so forth. And they were being destroyed by the gods because they feared these creatures, or there was all kinds of reasons, but they wanted to destroy all the giants, and they did. And Zeus was the best destroyer of all these giants, and he killed Typhon, who was another child of the earth. It's just insane, but it appears to be true. And Jupiter gave birth to Venus, and Venus was the planet that almost impacted Earth and caused all of this destruction. This is where Velikovsky comes in. He wrote Worlds in Collision. And that's when Venus was ejected from, it said, the feared god Jupiter gave birth to the fiery comet, Venus. And it came out of Jupiter, literally out of a vagina, a literal vagina. I know it sounds crazy, but if you go back to my videos, you're going to see it. It's there. There is no question. And they were right up next to it. They took pictures right up, just almost in the vagina. And you could see every single detail of the vagina, every single detail. And it's just nobody can dispute it. So these things, as far as I'm concerned, were legitimate events recorded, and they were recorded by the people that survived them. Some survived, and they recorded that this fiery comet came at Earth, and I believe it took about 7 days to get to Earth in this just absolute glowing mass of heat. And when it bounced off our atmosphere, it caused the floods and all the mud fossils and all of that stuff. And in Apollodorus, it says that Prometheus, all right, was another god, and he was the one that molded mankind out of clay. All right, this is in the ancient Greek myths. It's very similar to the Bible and so forth. And he molded man. And he molded them in the image of the gods. So they were able to morph into anything they wanted. So their planets here and there, their rivers, their emotions. They were love, they were hate, desire. You know, every single emotion you can have. You know, pity, compassion. And they were creatures. And they were fought after by other creatures that didn't like that. I don't like compassionate people. I don't like people that want pity. I don't like this. I don't like that. So they had these gigantic battles, and I think it's over these emotions that they had. As far as I can determine, each one of them wanted to take their own piece of territory and expand it, and it's just exactly what's going on now. It's never ceased. Now, how you deal with that, I'm not sure. But I'm just going to show you what I have discovered, first of all. And again, I think I have something to do with this. I'm nobody special, trust me. But they put things in, like, I read a quote somewhere about, they put somebody, well, I'll show you the quote. Hold on a second. All right, I know I pick and choose things from the Bible and from all the ancient texts, but that's what I do, and I test all things and I hold fast what is good. Okay, my friends, before I get started, I have been criticized for not showing my evidence, my DNA tests, my CAT scans, all these things that I claim, and I have shown them hundreds and hundreds of times, and now I'm being criticized for showing them too much. So I'm getting it from both sides, because some people don't pay any attention. Other people, they are watching, and I appreciate that. And I have nothing better. There's no way I can do it other than to continuously show them over and over until they begin to be looked at by mainstream. Because right now I show it once or twice, it's gone, it's over. It's, you know, there's only a few people that really watch these things, to be honest with you. I have very little viewership. I have a lot of subs, but once they watch a little bit and then they start to talk to their friends, they're excluded from the conversation, so they just walk away. Because once you start talking about it, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be attacked. And if you're not, you're amongst very, very, very special people. So anyway, I'm going to show you my evidence first, and then I'm going to talk about what I consider to be possibly how God formed the solar system and put entities in charge. All right, so let me show you my evidence that supports Velikovsky's account of every culture on Earth having stories about dragons and giants and monsters and it's battles in the heavens, and not one single thing is not supported, because I have evidence, and it's material evidence, as I will show you. This is a DNA test. Now let me get started. Okay, as I probably mentioned or will, I just felt I had to go out in the woods and look and see if I could find something, and I found giant human beings. And this is a giant human hand, and it is a left hand, and you have one of these tendons going down your hand just like that. This is where the small finger goes off, and this is the thumb. This silvery looking stuff, all right, you see this peeling off of here? See how it's all peeling off? That's what's called grip skin, and that's the tough stuff that's on your skin, and it's made to do that. It's just made to really do the tough work and then just slough off and go away. Now, not only did I find the hand, I found fingers and knuckles and all kinds of stuff, and this is I can't remember now, but I think it's about 4 feet wide, somewhere around there. And this is the CAT scan from the fingertip, which I have here somewhere. Anyway, this is the bone, and these right here, you see that? Look at that structure right there. And you see this one? One of them's empty and one of them's a black looking thing. You see it? And they're both tendons. That's a tendon, that's a tendon. It goes up so you can do this with your fingers. Now, that right there is the blood supply of the artery, and that is the blood supply of the vein. And that comes up for a fingertip. And that fingertip was also, this is a CAT scan. This is 2D, which gives you all of the real details. 2D CAT scan really is the best for mud fossils. And here's another 2D here. I showed you that one. All right, here's the other one. Here's the side view. You can see that. You see the fingernail? That's where the fingernail went, right there. You never see that if you were look at this as just a rock. You won't see any of this stuff. You have to have a CAT scan. And then here's the CAT scan coming this direction. This is the 3D. And you really see, you don't get the kind of quality you do get with the 2D. But you can see the blood vessels. See the blood supplies coming down through the fingertip. They're going to come out there to service the fingertip. And there's the bone. And just barely see the pattern of the bone. You see it? But these are all the blood supplies coming around it, service the fingertip. And again, this is the bone. But that's about the best you can do with it, because these are all completely transitioned from bodily flesh into stone, but they are preserved in this specific fabulous manner. Like this is a bone. That was a bone at one time, a regular white bone inside a creature's body, and when it gets invaded under these conditions for mud fossilization, it becomes a stone. It becomes literally a mudstone, and on the outside is feldspar, and almost every single igneous rock there is that has a crust on it is feldspar, and feldspar is nothing more than the collagens and the keragens and the fibers that wrap around bones, and literally everything in your body is covered by fascia, and fascia is the collagens and the keragens that create feldspar, the silicon dioxide, and the silicon dioxide has boiled down from phospholipids. P is the phosphorus. Bilipid layers are phospholipids, phosphofats. They boil down to aluminum silicates with all kinds of other inclusions. But all feldspar is aluminum silicates, and they cover literally every stone there is. This is aluminum silicates on here. It's feldspar, and this is a goose. And there's the pattern of his feathers on his head. All right, all of that stuff is keratin and collagens too. And he died just like all the rest of them, flat on his back, on his side like that. And all my other stuff, like this was on that DNA test. I don't know if I showed you that, but I will. This is a human lung. It's been DNA tested and CAT scanned, everything else. And see, it's flat as a pancake on the back because these were from the Great Flood. And nobody is dismissing this anymore. The same thing with here. This is another lung. And that's flat as a pancake. This one here is partially eroded. The pleura, the real rubbery bag that coats the lung, is all eroded away. And you can see the lung, and there's the tag that tags it in. And here's the other tag that tags it into your body so that it doesn't go flopping around inside your body. And again, they're all flat as a pancake. Even the giants, they all died at the same time. Like, you see this here? Let me show you this. This right here is a bone ball, all right, and it's this bone ball right here. And coming down from that is this. So in other words, this is the finger sticking up this way. This is the bone ball right here. All these are muscles that wrap around the bone ball. This is a tendon that comes down this way. You see it coming down here? And that lets your finger do this. Now, these are the tendons. There's 3 of them here. You see it? And that's the center of the tendon coming down. Otherwise, you couldn't do that. All right? Now, this is flat as a pancake. Again, it died laying this way. Flat as a pancake on the bottom. And this was part of that hand. So I'm showing you the finger, the knuckle, the hand. Did I show you this? This is the actual fingertip. Right here. And again, you wouldn't see that as anything other than looking like a rock. But once you see under the 2D CAT scan, you can see all of the bone here, the tendons, and all of that stuff. So that's the hand. Here's the other side. See, one side eroded and the muscle was still here. This side has the tendons and everything flat as a pancake again, and this side completely eroded away. I have fingertips that are perfect, and I have fingertips that are so eroded that you can hardly make them out. Same thing here, and this is all on one side of the ball is completely eroded away. The other side still has a muscle. All right, remember? This is the muscle side. The other side has the bone ball right here. You can see the bone ball is just there. And this is broken off and eroded right into all of the tendon straps. And there is hundreds and hundreds of them. And this is eroded away, and all you have is the bone ball. Let's look at it again. Now, you can come back to these pictures and look on your own later. You see how all of these little layers in here, and the red is the blood, and this is the bone ball right here. The other side has all the muscle still on it. You see all the layers in here? These are all layers of tendon. You see them here? And see how flat that is? It's laid on his back, died in the same flood with all the rest of the creatures. And some of them were, here's the bigger one. Now that was DNA tested. And here's another one that was DNA tested right here. That's 3 feet long from the very front of the tip of the finger to there. All right, now, look at this carefully. I broke this piece off because I couldn't get any DNA out of it, and I wanted to get it DNA tested. Now, when I looked at it, it took me a while to figure this out, but I could see this pattern right here. You see it? Let me get my little pointer here. This is a fingernail. That's a fingernail. You see it? That's a fingernail. Just look at yours. It's the damn same thing. Now, what happens at the end of the bone of the fingertip? Because every one of these is a bone. That's a bone, that's a bone, that's a bone. And they're all joined together and they rock against each other. Well, they need a little plate to rock against, and that's the plate. Otherwise, you get bone to bone and you got problems. Now, these are the blood supplies, vein and the artery. coming in to this fingertip. And it has boiled and disassociated away from the other parts. And I have all kinds of stuff. I have most of the stuff is laying around out there, but they just look like rocks until you know what to look for. So here's what happened. I find this gigantic fingertip, and I look, and the fingerprints are literally still on here. So what I did is I smashed this piece off right here, so I get down inside to where the blood is, because fingers specifically have a very thick coating around them, which you can't get anything out of. So here's what happened when I smashed this off. Here's what I did find. And here it is. That's the fingerprints. You see the fingerprints right here? Those are sweat pores. Those are sweat pores. These are fingerprint ridges, the same as the fingerprint you got on your fingers. And this piece came off, and it's about that thick. It's the skin on this guy's hand. And that's that skin. You see how, I call it grip skin. They call it traction skin, whatever. I call it grip skin. And it's the stuff that you can grip, and the same thing on your fingers, your toes, your palms, your heels. Now, it comes right off of here, and then underneath it's just saturated with blood, absolutely saturated. So I took the blood out of there, and it wasn't wet, it was dried, but you could just, you drill it out of there. And it's got to be done carefully, no question whatsoever, but I did do it carefully, and I was all suited up, and I did all the right stuff, and it was dense, and they did negative controls. This was a very serious DNA test they did. And so anyway, that's the fingerprints from the finger. Came right off of here. Now, you remember I said there's a vein and an artery right here coming up into this fingertip? Well, all fingertips basically work the same way. They have vein and artery. Now, I have one here that is very, very eroded. Here it is right here. You see that? If you are any kind of a doctor or an anatomist, this is what they call a distal phalanges bone black pattern. And this is the vein and artery right here. All right. As a matter of fact, I have this here. Let me go grab it. Hold on a second. Hold on, gotta find it. All right. Pay attention closely. This is the blood pattern in fingertips, and they are saturated with blood. And there's 2 holes here, 2 holes here, and 2 at the tips, and 2 coming in. And that's how they all are. All right. So you got a vein and an artery. Well, the artery comes in, the vein comes back, and in between you've got 2 spots here, 2 here, and 2 at the tips. All right. This is that fingertip that I showed you right down here. All right, there's the vein, there's the artery. Arteries blow out. You see, remember I said there's 2? They blow out. When they get eroded enough, they just blow completely out and they're gone. And the same thing at the end. The tip has the same thing. And then on this side, you can't see it because they have valves. But there is a vein right there, and there's a vein right underneath the hook. And that hook is something else I can show you too, which is very interesting. Now, also on the end, it didn't blow out, you see? But the arteries do. And that was a regular fingertip, exactly like this, but eroded way down. So you don't see all of these same things down in here. But you can see the hook. You see the hook? That's the same hook as like that one there. This is where the tendons lock in to the side of the fingers so that you can do all these movements. Very interesting stuff. And of course, this is the bottom, the pads on the bottom of the finger. And that's what they call an apical tuft. You see those little things coming out of it? There's a whole batch of fibers that lock in here. I have one that's completely eroded. This is an apical tuft as well. And there's balls that are all stuck in here, and all those holes have balls. There's only one left. And it sits right in there just like that, inside, deep inside. And that's what anchors all of those tendons to your fingertip. I've done a lot of work on this. I mean, it's very, very interesting when you take the time and look at things. And again, that's the distal phalanges. It's called bone black because when the bones have the marrow in it, and the marrow actually turns black, a little bit different than the really red blood cells. The red blood doesn't turn black, and it can actually stay literally fluid forever, just about forever. As a matter of fact, hold on one second. Hold on the fort. All right, you got to get something that has a lot of blood in it to start with, and lungs have a ton of blood in them. This one's been DNA tested and CAT scanned, and it is right here. Again, flat as a pancake because it died in the flood, and there's all of the red blood in here, and I drilled in there and got red blood, sent that off, as well as a gigantic fingertip. They all died at the same time in the same flood, as far as I can concern, and they're all on the surface of the earth, so this did not happen that long ago. And they're flat as a pancake. And they did get transitioned from biological flesh into exceptionally preserved soft body creatures, which is what I'm showing you. And that's exactly what my paper said originally, and it's exactly what Yale agrees to. They agree that I'm correct, that these are from a great salt water, heavy silicon, flash flood, global, worldwide, could have transitioned into mud fossils within hours or days. All of that is in their paper. 100% of that is in their paper, and 100% of that I told them years before. My DNA test goes back to 2015. All right, this was at 9. It went a couple of months. They did some serious tests on this. Because I said, I don't care. Just make it right. I don't care what it. I did. I don't remember saying I don't care what it costs. Of course I care, but I wanted it done right. I said I don't want a swab. I want really something that proves everything that I can make my statements on. And this is what happened. They did the. I extracted the stuff. I took the stuff out and put it in glassine bags and sent it off. I did it very carefully, methodically, no problems whatsoever. And there was no issues with the negative controls. They showed that there was no negative controls in there. It was just one set of DNA, and that was it. So there was, either I just sent them fake stuff, or the stuff I sent them was what they say it is. Now, these are the three things. The big 36-inch fingertip. The lung, which is here, right here, and then the mud tip, which is this here, right here. So they checked all three of these things. The bacterial DNA extracted from each of the three samples, submitted, and and it goes on. And this is online. I've shown this over and over and over. And they go through all of the little details of whatever they did. And PCR positive result for a specific mitochondrial DNA marker indicates the marker DNA sequence was successfully amplified. And this, yes, they were all successfully amplified. And the negative controls were negative. And these were the slides, whatever they do. And these were the different primers they used to sequence the DNA. And the excellent quality DNA was obtained from the 36-inch tip. That's the one I broke the piece off and went down inside. It was just like raw blood, but it's still reddish. And the lung, which is this lung here, is just another one, just literally solid red blood. And the fingertip here was a little more transitioned into a mudstone. This is more, and it was not as dense in the DNA, but it was still okay. And these were the Homo sapien mitochondrial B gene and D loop region. And again, this was very, very, very seriously done. And they were the nicest people to work with. It was Helix Biolabs. Very, very professional, extremely professional. And I think he knew what he was up for when he did it, because there had been a huge controversy with Mary Schweitzer and Mark Armitage and a whole bunch. As a matter of fact, Somebody sent me something. Well, let me see if I can find it. It's about Mark Armitage and finding this horn that actually had cells in it. Well, I've got blood leaking out of my stuff, literally blood, and it's human. And it's been tested and DNA sequenced in all 9 yards. So a horn doesn't do a big thing for me. But they're looking for creationists. Well, hold on, let me play you the little video. It's a very short one. Okay, this is the thing about Mark Armitage and so forth, finding this dinosaur horn. And here it goes.
In 2012, the Creation Research Society sponsored Mark Armitage and I to go to the Hell Creek Formation in Montana, which is a very popular place for finding dinosaur bones. And we instead dug out a almost 4-foot long Triceratops brow horn. Now, it's just in crumbled pieces now, so we can't really, put it together and show you a horn. But yeah, you have to recognize that pieces such as this, we have found tissue with cells.
Oh, that's amazing.
And potentially proteins such as collagen. It's so difficult to understand how you could have this material still in a dinosaur fossil that is supposed to be 65, 75, 80 million years of age, because tissue, cells, proteins break down. They're not concrete, they don't just exist for eons of time, they break down. And
all right, so these are his conclusions and his opinion that all this stuff breaks down. You can't preserve this. You can't. That horn is really a new fossil. My fossils are before fossils were even supposed to exist. It's exactly what Yale says. Don't forget, my fossils are before fossils were even supposed to exist. My fossils are the Earth's earliest fossilized ecosystem of complex macroscopic multicellular organisms. And it occurred during this terminal layer, they call it the Ediacara strata, worldwide. It's everywhere because of the Great Flood, and that's why they're all flat like a pancake on the back. It says, yet how the fossils preserved remains controversial. I have figured out exactly how it happened, and it was a hot water flood, and it created these exceptional preservation of soft-bodied creatures. And they also say it was from a very fast, heavy silicate. Here's what happened. Early stage precipitation of silica cements, and I know how that happened, where the silica came from. It facilitated by the high silica saturation state of the oceans, which was worldwide because it was a gigantic flood, prior to the appearance of silica biomineralizers, which is what caused all of these to preserve. Every single coating of these is silica rich. And that's what created all of that. So I figured all this stuff out. And I presented all this stuff to them, and my paper was in 2015. Their paper was in 2016. And anyway, I don't think they would have had any clue about this without me sending all them this information. I did it long before they did, and they just dismissed my stuff. That's what annoyed me. That's what annoyed me a lot. So I wrote a book called Mudfossils and Velikovsky and Minds in Collision. He wrote Worlds in Collision. And that is what all the ancient texts and religions and gods and monsters, and Venus was a god like. I'm telling you, it's just so bizarre that it's hard to believe. But until you let your mind roam into that district, you can't possibly even start to understand. You have to open your mind up enough to where you feel like an idiot to be able to understand that this stuff is true. And if it is true, it's so spectacular, and it is true. I haven't found, there's nothing here that I can't stand behind. And I have blood coming out of the rocks. I have literally blood. So don't tell me you can't get blood out of a rock. This is a lung. And that's a lung too. Now this one actually had literal blood. That's literally wet blobs of blood leaked out of this one. And I have other ones that did the same thing. Normally they create scabs. This one here just had leaked blood right out. Well, let me show you another one, a heart. You need something that had a lot of blood to begin with, so your hearts and lungs work the best. Okay, this was a friend of mine, Phil Harris. Unfortunately, Phil has passed away, but he took the challenge to go out and see if he could find something. When he saw this rock and he saw this red spot, he banged it with a hammer, and it splits right across the top of the heart. And a lot of them do it. The plumbing is all up in here. So he hit it, and there it is right there. It's saturated with blood inside. And these are the three different colors of the blood that is, some of it's used, some of it's not used. This is the fresh blood, this is used blood, and that, I believe, is lymph. I got a feeling it is. Anyway, after an hour or two, it turned like this. It deoxygenated itself and turned dark like the used blood. So this, and that just happened, you know, that's a rock. And it's just saturated with blood. I have a lot of other people that had a lot of blood coming out of them. And I have other ones with blood that, you know, I can make the blood react, which tells me it's got enzymes in it. And what you can do is anytime you have a vein or an artery or something in a rock, and you want to see if it actually is blood, you can put a little hydrogen peroxide right on that spot, right in that area. And if it bubbles up like crazy, it means there's an enzyme in the blood which attacks that hydrogen peroxide and bubbles off the oxygen. So you see it go blah, 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 and it goes like crazy if you got a lot of blood. If the blood is weak and it's not, the enzyme is not strong, here if you put enzyme on that, it would just look like a big foamy foam. Because if you take regular blood and put a hydrogen peroxide on it, it goes crazy. There's one guy took a pig's blood, like a little pint of it or something, and throw in a bunch of hydrogen peroxide. It went just like that. It was like a volcano erupting. So that's the way you test rocks for actual blood. Okay, here's a picture that's on here from Muhammad Abdo, and he's showing an Egyptian guy washing this giant's feet. Now, you see the tip of his toes? That's not much bigger than this. Probably about the same size. And this I figured out to be somewhere between 60 to 70 feet tall. So that's what I would imagine that guy is. Now, my other one, the big one, I think is probably 180 feet to 200 feet tall. That's the 3 foot long fingertip. 3 feet long is pretty long. And I assume this guy is about our size today. Because both of them lived at the same time, right here, side by side. Side by side, right in my back, right on my backyard. One of them sat here, and the other one is huge, and the other ones are small. I have regular sized creatures here all over the place. Like this here, this is a lung from something that's smaller than us, like a child's lung or something. This is a lung virtually identical to a human lung. Well, it is a human lung, and it's virtually identical to our size now, not much bigger or smaller. That's a bone, which is not much bigger or smaller than what they would be today. This is a goose. The goose is about the same size as a goose's head today. I don't know, maybe a little bigger and a little smaller, I don't know. A little bigger maybe, I don't know. But we had all the sizes were here, and then we had giants like this hair follicle from a giant. All right, here's a hair follicle right there. There's the erector pili muscle. All right, there's the sebaceous gland. There's the hair shaft with a flat side, means it's curly-haired person. So the pili muscle, sebaceous gland, the root coming up straight through the hair shaft, and a vein and an artery at the bottom. Completely transitioned. This is called nucleophilic substitution. Whatever condition this was in, it turned it yellow like this. It turned everything into the same sort of stuff. And that's why mud rock and mud fossils are primarily mud. Like, see this? This is just basically mud. But that was a fingertip. There's no question whatsoever. There's no question that was a fingertip. And that is the distal phalanges bone black pattern. And that's the vein side, artery, artery, artery. artery at the bottom, vein at the bottom. That's what it is. So you can see that they can become 100% mud. This is basically 100% mud now. And that's due to this particular invasion process. This one didn't get invaded in that same manner. It turned basically to like, hard meat. So you really couldn't tell the difference. So this is very well proven now. There is no question this is true. We have giants and we have dragons. The dragons also, there's no question about that, and they are written about. So we have giants. Here's the dragons. This is the dragon in Morocco. And this was something else. I don't think I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to mention it now. As I told you, I felt I had to go look in the woods, and I ended up finding the giants, and then I had that message that says these things are for you to see and for others as a test. Nobody passed the test. I am so frustrated. I'm so upset that I am almost literally in tears, and I am basically crying out to God, said, you chose the wrong guy. I just can't do this. This is never going to happen. I can't get not one person to paying attention to me. They literally all hate me now because I've come up with all this stuff, and they just think I'm an idiot, and I just can't get through to anybody. And I tried, and I got shut down for a lot of different reasons, and everybody put against me because they didn't like what I was saying. And at the same time, I'm up here in the desert. Okay, you see this? This goes back to 2015. Same time I'm doing all my other stuff. And I got Atlantis and the draining of the Sahara. Because a friend of mine's putting these books out, but they're just written on my papers. And when I posted these papers, they're all in academia. So I put up about the Atlantis. Now, I didn't know about the dragon. I had no idea about the dragon. So let me just show you something. Hold on. Okay, this has become quite convoluted. I've been interrupted many times, so I'm just going to splash it out here. I have shown this hundreds and hundreds of times. This is the dragon in Morocco, and he is Typhon, who is referenced in the ancient text in Apollodorus. And here he is unhighlighted. And you can come up in North Africa and look at this. It's all over the place. And the fish is right underneath him. And here he is, all three of them together. Well, I mean, the dragon, the fish, and there is the eye of the Sahara. Now, I studied this in great detail. I mean, in extreme detail. And I had a paper out about it. I think I might have mentioned this. It was back in 2015. And I was just looking at this. I never saw the fish and the dragon. Never saw it. And sometime, I don't know, maybe late 2015, 2016, I can't really remember. I'm sitting here in despair saying, God told me that these things were for me to see and for others as a test, and I couldn't get anybody to take the test. Absolutely nobody was interested. Zero. So I'm in despair, and I'm sitting here after looking at this thing 100 times, and when I show you the details in here, it's going to knock you away. So I'm literally calling on God. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't get anybody to pay any attention. You got the wrong guy. And I got a message almost instantly. And I heard it. I heard it like it came out of the TV or something. It said, "Look in Morocco." And I turned around, I looked around, and the TV was on, but it was a car commercial. It had nothing to do with Morocco. So I come up to Google Earth, boom, and there it is, Fish and the Dragon. I was floored. Now, when I say I looked at this eye of the Sahara, where do you see the details on this? This is just unreal. Because that is an eyeball, no question whatsoever. And the whole earth is nothing but creatures. Where that eyeball came from, I don't have any idea. All right, you see what an eyeball looks like? It's got all these little ringish looking things. And then this also is a fresh looking eyeball and all that little stringy looking stuff. And there's all these little webby things going in between these different layers. And this is what a regular eyeball looks like. And this thing here, I forget what they call that, but it's a little pillowy looking thing, and then there's the optic nerve runs into the eyeball. And let's see, I have another shot of it here somewhere. Well, I guess that's it. But when I show you what the eyeball is in the eye of the Sahara, it is an eyeball. All right, don't forget the pillow-looking thing. All right, that's the optic nerve right there that runs out into the eyeball. And here it is right here. And this is, you're going to see from this little thing where all of these little jobbers attach to the optic nerve coming from the eyeball. All right, just take a second to look at all this. These rings and all these little things going in between them, all these little, whatever they are. All right, now this is the normal eye. When you look at an eyeball, whoops, it looks like this. Very similar, very, very, very similar. Now, when I said you can see the optic nerve and everything else, you can. Don't forget, we have the optic nerve is running right back here with all these little jobbers coming up to it. Now let's look at the optic nerve in the eye of the Sahara. Okay, now don't forget, the other one is just an artist's rendition. This is literally what the eyeball looks like. And these are all those little webbing details that surround the central core. Now, let's look for the optic nerve. It is right here. Remember all those little things coming up and all those little jobbers going into it? There they are right here. You see this whole loop coming around here? And then it feeds up here. These two come right up to the optic nerve. And here's the optic nerve. You see all those little fibers coming in? There they are, there they are, there they are, all over the place. All right, again, you have Google Earth. Come up and play around. Look around for yourself. I can't give you every little detail. But I can tell you what, I think this is that puffy looking thing. I can't remember what the name of it was. But this is, as far as I'm concerned, there's no question, this is the optic nerve attachment. And these are all the little optic nerve fibers. I mean, they're everywhere. There's bazillions of them. And they control your eyesight. All right, and this thing up here is some kind of a gland. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it's some kind of a gland that, I don't know, maybe put some oils in your eyeball or something. But anyway, I was looking at this for at least a year. I never saw the fish and the dragon, which is here. And they are there. There is no question. And that's the dragon's head. I showed you that. I'm sure I showed you this a couple of times at least. And I've shown this literally hundreds and hundreds of times. With nobody seems to make any importance to anybody of any substance. You know, a normal person on the street, if you're watching this, you may say, wow, wow, and then that's it. You go about your life. But if you still go telling people there's a dragon 1,000 miles long, you're probably not going to be out stating those things very often because people will attack you for it. And you just... A lot of people just say, well, I better just not say anything if I want to be accepted in my group. Well, I guess that's good. That's what, you know, if that's the way you are, that's good. I'm not that way. I'd rather be honest about it and speak about it. And I'm not going to be quiet. That's why people don't want me around them anymore because, you know, they'll say something, I'll say something, and it'll be totally different. And then it'll be just dead silence. And you know, and then there'll just be no interaction. You can feel the tension. So it's better that I just do what I'm doing and put these videos out because the evidence is here. I'm not showing something that I can't support. There's nothing here that I can't support. I mean, DNA, CAT scans, specimens, and you know, so much that it's beyond belief, but it is true. So let's deal with it in a rational way rather than to just pretend that it's not real. I'm done pretending. I was done pretending at least 10 years ago, more than that. As soon as I found him, I said, that's it. I'm not turning around from this. No, you can tell me whatever you want, but I'm not going to turn. And I'm not going to. And I think sooner or later, people will have to embrace this. And what it means to your eternity, I don't know. What it means to mine, I don't know either. But I'm trying to do the things that make sense for a good eternity. If you're a bad person and a terrible person and you couldn't care less about anybody else, and all the things that you did that were really nasty, you have no remorse for, well, then you're not going to get to heaven, I don't think. And if there is a heaven, I don't know any of this stuff. I'm as lost as anybody. I am in the process of looking and seeking. And that's exactly what Jesus said. He said, seek until you find. I think I have found, but I am not absolutely certain. So I want to be absolutely certain. And for this, I must do a little role playing and pretend that I am God, and how would I set up this solar system, and who's in charge? Because the guy that is in charge, I don't think is the guy you think is in charge. The guy that was in charge of this solar system, who was always worshipped as God, was literally Zeus, who was Jupiter, who was a sex addict, and came down and ruled Earth and just raped the women and chased them around. And that's exactly what's written in the Bible, that 200 of them would come down and have a party on Earth. And Satan, who apparently must be Zeus, and Jupiter, that's all I can take, because that's exactly what he did. That's exactly what they did. They came down and had a major party, and then it started, everybody was jealous, and there was all kinds of emotions, and the next thing you know, there's wars and hatred and violence and separation, and you know, it just turned like it is now, and it never has gotten any better, basically. It's been domination and violence. That's all I see, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. It looks like it might get really, really worse. All right, I was going to do the whole thing about me being God and how I would set up the solar system and so forth, and I am going to do that. And I can just tell you the fact that I think there has to be a God that sent another God here to run this solar system, and that God put Zeus in charge, and he turned against God and went for the sex, and then we're in this battle of, he was the God of the solar system, so everybody bowed down to him, and he was praised until Jesus came along and said, you got the wrong God. That's the way I'm taking it. And Jesus was the son of the Son, not the son of Zeus, who was the God. He was the son of the Son, who was the real God. Now, the real giant God is the one of the universe somewhere, I would say, delegating authority to other gods to run solar systems and put other gods of their lesser gods from them in charge of different things. And it went terribly wrong. So I am going to go into that, because you open up a whole new way of thinking when you start to say, how would I deal with this? How would I deal with that? It's right now. How are you going to deal with these problems we're having on Earth right now? I'm racking my brain, and I'm telling you right now, this is not easy. This is not an easy thing. Once you get into these confrontations, you got problems. The best way is to never get to that confrontation stage. Once it starts, I don't see a way out. But anyway, those are the kind of things I'm going to be discussing. But listen to this. These are the things that just fell onto me, literally fell onto me as soon as I found the mud fossil. I'm not kidding you. I didn't go searching for them. Luke 19:40 or 37. He approached the descent from the Mount of Olives. The whole multitude of disciples began to praise God joyfully in a loud voice for all the miracles they had seen. Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest. Peace, that's what we need. Some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to him, Teacher, rebuke your disciples. I tell you, he answered, if they remain silent, the very stones will cry out. And that's what's happened. The Pharisees are the academics. They said, you shut up about that kind of stuff. Well, the stones have made their statement. Now, this was another one. Listen to this. And this is me. This could be my resume. Corinthians 1 Corinthians 1:26. Brothers, consider the time of your calling. Not many of you were wise by human standards, that's me. Not many were powerful, that's me. Not many were of noble birth, that's me. God chose the foolish things of the world, that's me. To shame the wise, God chose the weak things, that's me. To shame the strong, he chose the lowly and despised things, that's me. And things that are not, that's me, to nullify the things that are. Well, so far I'm not getting anywhere, but we'll see. Here's another one, 2 Corinthians. Their minds were blinded, for until this day remaineth the same veil untaken away in the reading of the Old Testament, which veil is done away in Christ. They had a veil over everybody's eyes and said, worship God. But God was Zeus. Christ came and he said, no, that's the wrong, you got the wrong guy. And they killed him. So anyway, it comes down, they're all over the place. You know, here's in the prophecy of Isaiah fulfilled, they will be ever hearing, but never understanding. Right? You will be ever seeing, but never perceiving. For this people's heart has grown callous. They hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes. They don't want to see. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn, and I would heal them. That's what I'm hoping for me, I can tell you that. But blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. For truly I tell you, many prophets and righteous men longed to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it. Huh? Titus 1:16, they claim to know God, but by their actions they deny him. They are detestable, disobedient, unfit for doing anything good. Well, that's a little harsh. This is 3 John 1:4. I have no greater joy than to hear my children walk in truth. Right now, it's all PhD stuff. Perfectly happy, deluded. There's no sense in liquor. Listen to this, 2 Peter 2. In their greed, these false teachers will exploit you with tales they have concocted. And that's all I'm finding is concocted tales to exploit for funding. The long-standing verdict against them remains in force, and their destruction does not sleep. And it goes on and on and on. I mean, certain individuals whose condemnation was written about long ago have secretly slipped in among you. They're ungodly, that's for sure, who pervert the grace of our God into a license for immorality. They deny Jesus Christ, our only sovereign and Lord. Anyway, it goes on and on and on. And like I say, I didn't go looking for those things. They just sort of fell on me. I don't know, people sent them to me and this and that happened, but all of this is virtually undeniable. If somebody wants to deny it from mainstream, that is what I'm hoping to hear. But there is no denial that can be made, and honestly made. The only thing they can do is say the guy's got to be crazy. They can't say this is wrong because of this or that's wrong because of this. No. This is right because of this, and this is right because of this, and this is right because of that. Show me where I'm wrong. And the people are being denied the right to understand our ancient past, our ancient history. Now, this has got very convoluted, and I'm sure it's out of order, and it's all mixed up and jumbled up and all that stuff, but all of the things that I'm talking about, I feel have at least some substance to it, something that we should look at, something that we shouldn't deny or shouldn't just dismiss out of hand and say, the guy's got to be crazy. And this is what happens. Most of the things are never looked at, and they're just immediately dismissed. Now, I have all the evidence, DNA tests and CAT scans and specimens and history and, everything. And Velikovsky was my guy. He's the one. He was a good friend of Einstein. He wasn't off-the-wall crazy guy or anything. He just went and searched all the ancient texts. And when he came up with a conclusion, it said that Venus was ejected from Jupiter, and it almost hit Earth, and eventually it did hit Mars, and it killed virtually everything on Earth at that time, and it literally killed everything on Mars. So it could have been a double shot whammy that, Jupiter decided, I got to get rid of all this life, because Mars was completely saturated with the same life as Earth. It's exactly the same. And I've shown that hundreds of times as well. The Mars crab, the Mars blueberries, the Mars Morse code, all from biology. So, and all the things in space. Comet Bennu, Comet Psyche, I've shown those. They're both hearts. And they just came back with a sample from Bennu. And I can guarantee you that will be blood. Blood, blood. As soon as they give the details on what's in there, I can guarantee you, absolutely guarantee you, anybody want to put any money on it whatsoever, contact me. That will be blood. There may have a little bit of changes to it because of the radiation being out in the open solar system, but it's still going to be blood. It'll be easily identified as blood.